Okay, well, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel, and it is the Jaguar S-Type, or 3.4 or 3.8S from the 1960s that is the subject of today's classic brochure review. You may have noticed in a previous upload I did a similar review of the Jaguar Mark II brochure, and this came from the same gentleman, and this was for the S-Type model, which in many ways was designed as a replacement, an updated and improved version of the Mark II. But because the Mark II was actually selling in quite decent numbers, even in the early 1960s, after several years of production, both cars were actually sold alongside each other for quite a while. The Mark II came along in 1959 and was produced until 67, and a couple more years for the run-out 240 and 340. The S-Type, as shown here, was introduced in 1963 and continued in production for, I think, 5 years until 1968, and you can have a 3.4 or a 3.8 litre version of it. And here is a spot-on toy from the period of an S-Type Jaguar, made in Northern Ireland. This car is fitted with Flexomatic independent suspension, it says under there, which reminds us that the S-Type, the key difference between the S-Type, apart from slightly modified styling when compared to the Mark II, was the fitting of independent rear suspension, similar to that found on the Mark X Saloon. Slightly narrower, but the basic design was pretty much the same. So spot on, we're keen to pick up on that fact and that improvement to the Jaguar range, hence that particular toy with its soft, very soft, wiggly suspension. But back to the brochure. Now, again, this came from the same gentleman that the Mark II brochure came from, so let's have a quick look in here and see what we have. On the facing page, if we can get that in, is a side profile view of the S-Type. I mean, the family links to the other Jaguars of the era, especially the Mark II, are pretty clear to see. The differences were there was a longer tail, and it was substantially re-engineered to accommodate the independent rear suspension back here. The roofline was flatter and stayed higher for longer to give the rear seat passengers a little more headroom. And the nose was modified slightly, not a great deal, but you've got these little hooded peaks over the headlamps now, which you didn't get on the Mark II, different side lights and turn signals, different grille. And the slim bumpers, as was found on the 240s and 340s of sort of 1967, 68, etc. So it's very much in the spirit of the Mark II, but an evolution of the Mark II. Was the styling as successful as the Mark II? I'm not quite sure, and the jury is still out on that to this day. Even some of the Jaguar engineers back in the day weren't quite sure about the styling of it, but it's still a very handsome car, and if it wasn't for the fact that the Mark II was sold alongside it, if this was just sold on its own, it would have probably received a lot more plaudits back in the day. So let's see what Jaguar had to say about their new S-Type. The wide choice of high-performance, high-quality motoring which the Jaguar range provides is now further extended by the introduction of the 3.4S and the 3.8S models. These make available in a car of compact dimensions the very latest refinements in Jaguar design and engineering. With impeccable body styling and spacious interior proportions, seating for 5 adults, all-round independent suspension, disc brakes on all 4 wheels, a new interior heating and ventilation system with infinitely variable control, reclining seats, twin petrol tanks, exceptionally large luggage boots, with many more features combining to give performance, comfort and value such as only Jaguar offer. The S models truly uphold the Jaguar tradition of providing a special kind of motoring which no other car in the world can offer. And it's photographed here alongside some modern art installation with a fairly grubby block of flats in the background, it has to be said. So it's a very heavily airbrushed illustration of the S-Type. I can't quite make out the registration number on there, but it's on standard steel wheels, and I think they're a very handsome car. Let's keep going and see what else this brochure will reveal. Next we have another side-on view, this time of a greyish car with the standard wheel hubcaps on it. A new conception in luxury motoring. It's a very coastal scene. What do we have here? Back to the capital. The quiet power of the Jaguar S model. Its superb suspension and luxuriously appointed interior guarantee absolute comfort for any journey, regardless of distance or road conditions. Superior coachwork finish and interior trim complete the picture of luxury afforded by this car, which, in its class, has no equal. And like most Jaguars at the time, it was a very, very handsome looking machine. You've got the litre on the bonnet there. And I mean, the family link to the Mk2 is clear here. And the registration 3270 KV. Was that a genuine Jaguar registration? Somebody will know. And this photograph, unless this has been retouched, was taken at 4:45 one evening, or late afternoon, by the look of it. Let's carry on. The 3.4 litre model produced, I think, 210 brake horsepower, and the 3.8 was 220 brake horsepower, both fed by twin SU carburetors. They're never able to fit the triple SU setup under the bonnet, whereas the Mk2 and the 420G did have the 3 carburetor setup. That was never offered from new by Jaguar with the Jaguar S-Type. Just move that out of the way. Luxury and refinement in the true Jaguar tradition. And here we've got some heavily airbrushed interior scenes showing the dashboard, the seating and so on inside the car. The Jaguar S model is a 5-seater saloon with increased interior space, head and legroom, affording the highest degree of comfort front and rear. When they talk about increased interior space, legroom, etc., that was increased based over the Mk2, obviously. Individual front seats with combined adjustment for reach and height feature reclining backrests. Front and rear seats have folding centre armrests. All upholstery is in finest quality leather hide over deep foam rubber cushions. High quality carpets are fitted throughout, and all woodwork is in polished figured walnut. A high efficiency fresh air heating and ventilation system with individual controls for front and rear compartments provides an infinite range of temperatures and volume, together with rapid defrosting and demisting of the windscreen. Ventilation was never a Jaguar strong point in the 60s and 70s. So we've got the opening quarter lights here to help with windscreen demisting. This classic Jaguar layout of glove box, a bank of switches, the smaller ancillary gauges and the 2 main gauges, the speedo and the tachometer, directly in front of the driver. Let's go over here. Here we have the driver's eye view of the dash, all looking very nice. Of course, the engine, there was only 2 engine options, both versions of the straight 6 XK engine. Ample luggage accommodation is provided in a capacious compartment of 19 cubic feet capacity. The lid is counterbalanced for ease of operation, and the interior is illuminated by night and is fully trimmed to protect luggage. A comprehensive range of instruments together with a row of clearly labelled switches are mounted in a polished walnut panel. Space for personal effects is provided by a glove compartment with lock and interior light and a full width parcel shelf. And you only have to look at that to see where the influences on the XJ saloon of 1968 onwards came from, which was very, very similar layout to this. And there we have the boot lid area, the boot area, storage area. Various details of the instrumentation. Just keep going a little while. Of course, the 420, which came along a little later after the S-Type, with its sort of same main body but squared off front, was basically an S-Type, an updated S-Type. So the S-Type was an updated Mk2 in many ways, and the 420 and the Daimler Sovereign were an updated, modernised version of the S-Type, although the S-Type was only available as a Jaguar, but the 420, the later 420, you could have a Daimler or a Jaguar version. So let's see what we have here. We've got a lovely cutaway drawing from the motor, showing the layout of the independent rear suspension, obviously the twin tanks in the rear end, engine installation, interior and so on, with various notes. Choice of 3.4 or 3.8 litre 6-cylinder XK engines. Choice of manual change transmission with or without overdrive, or fully automatic transmission. And a large fuel tank capacity of 14 gallons carried in 2 separate tanks. And then we have a closer look at the suspension arrangements. We've got the front end here, and the rear end here. And anyone who's worked on Jaguars will tell you what joy it is to work on the rear discs here, and the handbrake calipers, which are on the top up here. They are a joy to behold if you need to ever work on those. So let's carry on. Here we have a little more information on that famous XK engine, 3.4 or 3.8 litre. Here it's a 3.8 litre, as it handily says on the side of the block there. Twin overhead cam, twin SUs. The Jaguar 6-cylinder twin overhead camshaft XK engine is acknowledged throughout the world as a perfect expression of engineering efficiency. Its high power output over wide speed range, its durability and smoothness have endowed it with this worldwide reputation. A reputation further enhanced by the many victories won by Jaguar cars in international rallies and races all over the world. A choice of two XK engines is available for the Jaguar S model, the 3.4 or 3.8 litre, and comparative data for which is given below. So if you're umming and ahhing whether to go for a 3.4 or 3.8, here are the figures and the performance tables, which might help you make your decision. To be honest, there doesn't seem to be a huge difference, but I guess there must have been. I'd be interested to hear from anyone who runs an S-Type now, or did do back in the day, and just sort of let me know what you think of them. Were they as good a car as I think they probably were? And here we have a nice green version. Is that Buckingham Palace in the background? Certainly looks a bit like it. Again, heavily airbrushed. No sign of a steering wheel, I don't think. That doesn't quite show in the picture, but again, a handsome machine if ever there was one. And over the page we have the specification, which I'll take a closer look at, so you can have a read of that and pause the video if there's any particular part you want to read about, whether the engine, specification, transmission options. You've got the manual gearbox, manual overdrive, or the automatic transmission, a Borg-Warner unit. We've got suspension details, brakes, steering, wheels, tyres, fuel supply, electrical equipment, details about the body. Of course it was all monocoque at this time. Heating and demisting, luggage accommodation, spare wheel and tools, jacking, and the dimensions for the S-Type. So if you need to know whether the S-Type will fit in your garage or whether you will fit in an S-Type yourself, this page here gives you all the dimensions that you might need. So again, if there's anything you need to know, whether the length, the width, etc., just pause the video at this point and you should be able to work it all out from the details given here. So let me just carry on a little further. And we have a list of the colour schemes that were available. Exterior coachwork paint options such as Warwick Grey, Sherwood Green, Dark Blue, Carmen Red, etc., Golden Sand, and the interior upholstery alternatives. So if you wanted a dark blue car, you could pick from red, light blue or grey interior, and so on. So if you're restoring an S-Type and you want to know what the colour combinations were available back in the day, have a closer look at this page now. And handily, here we have an original price list for all Jaguar models for May 1967. If we have a look in here, we can see all the prices for the Jaguars for May 67. Just have a quick look here. I'll zoom in actually. But we've got prices for the Mark II, the S-Type, the 420, the 420G, which was a revised 4.2 litre version of the Mark X, the 420G Limousine. I remember finding a couple of those, dumped ones. They had a wind-up partition. And you've got the 4.2 litre E-Type and the 4.2 litre E-Type 2+2. So you've got the fixed head, the open, and the 2+2. So yeah, those are all the prices. If we have a look at the Jaguar S-Type, the basic recommended price for the 3.4 saloon manual, no overdrive, was £1,422, to which you added just over £327 of purchase tax, bringing the total to £1,749. Then we've got the prices for the 3.4 overdrive, the automatic, and the 3.8 litre S-Type, and then with overdrive or then with automatic transmission. So the prices for the S-Type ranged from £1,749 for the basic 3.4 with manual gearbox, through to £1,978 for the automatic 3.8S. So there you go. Those are all the prices for Jaguar cars in 1967. And that was the brochure, the spiral bound original brochure for the 3.4 and the 3.8 litre Jaguar S-Type. I hope that was of interest, and like I said, I'd welcome comments from anyone who has experience of these fine motor cars. Do you prefer it to the Mark II, and if so, why? Or do you think the Mark II is a much better bet? Like I said, I've done a brochure review already for the Mark II, so please check that out as well while you're here, and please like and subscribe to this video on the channel if this kind of thing is of interest to you. If classic car videos, etc. of interest, let me know if there's any particular cars that you'd like to see featured in the brochure section. And subscribe just to keep up to date with future uploads. So thanks for watching, and see you again soon. Bye bye.